Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 20 of the Christmas Craft Countdown, which means it's the final day. We've already got to the end of the countdown for this year. I thought we'd end on something big. Remember, we started on something big way back on day 1. So for day 20, let's go big again. I have quite the collection of reindeer here in front of me. I've got 6 different layered designs. And what could they possibly be doing? Of course, getting ready for Christmas. They are pulling Santa in his sleigh filled with gifts to deliver all over the world. This is a giant design which will be built in sections, all stuck together so you can still cut it from your regular 12x12, A4 or US letter cardstock. And then it will all be mounted onto the wall using ribbon to connect everything together. Here's how it looks all up on my wall, and I've held it up with blue tack, but I'll go through some other options towards the end of this video. You can see how awesome it looks when all the bits are connected with the ribbon, and it fills up a whole wall in my office space, which is really, really nice. It definitely makes an impact. If you don't have this much space to display your Santa and reindeer, you could change it a little bit so that the reindeer appear 2x2 rather than one after the other. That way it takes up much less width, and also it fills in the height a little bit better too. So you can see how that looks on the screen now. Even though this Santa and reindeer is a very big project, the shapes are actually all fairly simple to cut together, so it doesn't take as long as you might think to get it all cut so that then we can start sticking it together. Let's get started. The files for this project are free for the next 24 hours. Here's how to download them. Register a free ticket for the Christmas Craft Countdown at craftwithsarah.com/Christmas24. After registering, you'll get an email which contains a link to the schedule page for the countdown. Visit the schedule page to find and download today's files. Each download is only available for free for 24 hours after it goes live. If you've missed some, check out the Instant Access Bundle at craftwithsarah.com/Christmas24 bundle, which gives immediate and ongoing access to all of the files from the Christmas Craft Countdown, plus lots of extra bonus designs. The download comes in a zip folder. You need to unzip this before uploading the SVG files into Cricut Design Space. This is what the design looks like when it's loaded into Cricut Design Space. If you're not sure how to get to this stage, check out the schedule page for the Christmas Craft Countdown, and within there is a foundation learning section with a link to a separate tutorial on how to upload SVG files into Cricut Design Space. You'll notice that you can't see all of the design on the screen. That's because this is a giant design, which means it's currently not all fitting, but you can use the buttons on the bottom left to zoom out if you want to see everything. One thing to check when this loads in is that it's come in at the correct size, because Design Space did recently make a change that was making any big designs load in much smaller than originally intended by the designer. Now, I think they have reversed that change now, because I am finding that my designs are loading correctly again. But just in case, as that is a new change, I highly recommend checking the size, because you don't want to accidentally cut this out tiny. You'll notice when you load it that there's this green box that I've put in for you to show the size, just to make it as easy as possible to know what it's supposed to be. So mine actually has loaded in at the correct size. It's 32 inches wide and 25 inches tall. But if yours doesn't come in at that size, then just change it to match, and then we're all good to go. I want to get rid of this green box so that the Cricut doesn't cut it out. So to do that, click on the design to select it and press the ungroup button at the top of the layers panel. Then you can simply click to deselect everything, click onto that green box and press the trash can icon at the top of the layers panel or the delete button on your keyboard. You'll now see that there are 4 separate groups inside. 1 is for the Santa sleigh and 3 for the 3 different reindeer. I'll zoom out so you can see easier. The Santa cuts in pieces and in sections, which will then be gluing together to make the giant oversized design. The reindeer mostly cut in one part, apart from their antlers will cut separately to the bodies. I've included 3 reindeer in this project, but if you want to add more, then you can do that by duplicating these ones here.
For example, to make 6 reindeer instead of 3, I could drag a box around all of these and press the duplicate button at the top of the layers panel and drag them underneath. This would end up making 6 reindeer, and then 2 would be perfect matches of each other. You can make them look a little different by changing the colours. For example, if I click on this blue one here, and then open up the layers by clicking the arrow next to it in the layers panel, I could click on the blue bits, for example those snowflakes, and change that to a bright pink. And then I could also change the reindeer colour to a darker brown. And then I would need to also change the bottom layer for his bottom legs. And that kind of quickly gives you a different look. So now they're not looking exactly the same. So it's completely up to you however you want to do it and however many reindeer you want to make. When you're cutting this out, one thing I will say is that it is a little bit tricky when you get to the feet, because all of the feet on each reindeer are all slightly different shapes and sizes, but they're very similar. So it's a tad tricky working out which feet go on which reindeer. A way to make it easier when you're cutting it out, and this also makes it easier to tell which antlers go with which reindeer, is to hide them so that you're only cutting one at a time. To do that, click on the reindeer that you're not going to be cutting to start with, hover over them in the layers panel, and click on the eye icon. I'll keep that one and do that. That way it would only cut one reindeer when I click make, and then I could go and cut that project and then come back, and then I'd have already done the Santa sleigh, so I can hide that. Then I can hide one reindeer, turn another one on, and cut that one next. So if you do think you might struggle with knowing which bits go on which reindeer, you can absolutely cut them separately like that, but I am going to do mine all together along with the sleigh. And I will also go through and change these 2 reindeer to match the colours of this one as well. When you click make, you will see that this is very big. So we've got all the pieces here. You can change the paper size in the drop down, and then you can move things about by clicking and dragging to take up less space on your cardstock. Just make sure when you're doing this that nothing overlaps, otherwise it won't cut out properly. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom just to show you. This is a big project. Look, all the way down here, 37 sheets. And that's even before I've changed it from 12 by 12 to A4, which usually ends up needing more. Here are all of my antlers, and this is the feet, the hooves. So this is kind of what I was getting at when I said that there are lots and lots of similar shapes. We've also got all of the different browns for the reindeer too. But what I wanted to show you was the sleigh, the Santa sleigh, to show you how it comes in sections. So this bit would be for the back of the sleigh, and then we've got separate pieces that will make up the front, and I'll show you how to glue them together and overlap everything so it perfectly fits together, even though this is going to be one big project when it's all put together. Luckily, most of the shapes are actually fairly simple, so even though it's lots of cardstock and lots of mats, it doesn't take too long to cut out. I got it all cut in around about between 2 and 2.5 hours, but as part of that I was also kind of putting all the different bits in the right order in front of me, ready to stick together, so that wasn't completely focused cutting time. I reckon if I had been just loading one in, one out, it would have been closer to that 2-hour mark. So go ahead, get everything cut out with as many reindeer as you want to make, and then we'll see how to put together the Santa sleigh and his lovely reindeer. Here are all the pieces of my Santa sleigh, and I've laid all the bits one on top of the other following the assembly guide that's included in the download folder, and it comes in 2 sections, so I've built them up separately for now, but I will show you how to join them together shortly. We'll be sticking all this together as well as all the reindeer with some glue and foam squares. The glue I'm using is Bearly Art Glue, but I also like Collall, and the reason I like these 2 glues is that they don't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. The foam squares I'm using are from Dot and Dab. These ones are quite small, but I've also got some that are a little bigger, which will be a little easier because this is so big, but any foam squares will do in any size that you've got.
As with all my layered designs, we want to start at the bottom and then work our way upwards. So I'm going to move these pieces apart, trying to keep them in some kind of order, seeing as I've already gone to the effort of putting all the pieces in the correct order in front of me. The very bottom section of the sleigh is made up of these 3 pieces of black cardstock. There are little rectangle cutouts along the sides, and this is going to show where to overlap the pieces so that they join together. So what we'll be doing is gluing all of these one on top of the other so that all the rectangles perfectly line up with each other, and that way you know that everything is in the right place. So it'll end up looking like this. So get my glue and then go just over where those rectangles are, not too far. There's not an awful lot of overlap on here because the pieces are so big anyway. And then I can, let's also put a little bit down here. There we go. And then overlap and get those all lined up. There. And then the same for the ones along the top. And also go right out into that candy cane. And that's the bottom section done. See, it's not too bad. Next up, we've got this green piece to make up the Christmas tree. And then it's also got a piece that makes up the rest of the shape here. And one more on the other side. That will go there. I was a little bit worried about losing my baubles to go on the tree, so I've already stuck those on using foam squares, but you can do that once it's all stuck on together if you prefer. These pieces will all be glued onto the existing sign. We don't have the rectangle cutouts this time because it's the same shape as the black, so you can sort of see where to glue it based on what we've already done. So it lines right up. You can use the bell shape and the candy cane on the left to see where to put it. That lines up there. And then we've got the other 2 bits as well, which will have a little bit of an overlap along the join lines. So that's just to make sure that it all ends up green along all those joins and you don't accidentally end up with any little bits of black showing through, which might happen if there wasn't any overlap in the card, if you didn't quite have it lined up right. So the overlap is your little bit of contingency to help it all look good. Next up, add all the decorations onto your tree using some foam squares, and then we're going to glue on these 3 pieces. First, there's the gold or yellow for the back of the gift, which will go up here. Then there's the hand, which will line up along the top there. And finally, this little bit of gold or yellow, which will line up along the gift here. Find the star for the top of the Christmas tree, and this one will be stuck on with a bit of foam square. It's just about out of my camera shot. See if I can move everything so you can see better. There, nice little bit of sparkle on there, so that's how that is all looking. And then we've got some more big pieces to go on next, which again will be glued, and that is the bits to make up the blue. So there's one for the sort of front of the sleigh, one that covers the top of Santa's head, and then a large bit for down here. It doesn't matter which direction or order you put them on in, but I'm going to do the biggest one first. I didn't do a very good job of lining that up. Try that again. Before my glue's dry, just wiggle it around. I'm a little bit late. My glue has already dried in places. I just have to put up with that being a little bit misaligned. Next up, you've got this shape that looks almost like a T, which will be glued to the top of the gift on that left side. This is making up the sort of ribbon that goes down the box. There. And then for this one here, there's a little gold rectangle. Just sort of position it in the middle of that gift box and try and follow the angle that it's at. So it's not going straight down vertically, it's at a slight little angle. Then next up, we've got the top of those two boxes. So a big blue rectangle for this one, and this will be stuck on with foam squares. Start building up some depth now. On there, and then another gold bit to go on top, and this one will be glued. That one there, and similar for this side. We've got a rectangle that's going to go over there, and this one with foam squares, and then a little bit to go on the top. Next to add are these three red pieces, which again will all overlap, and they form kind of the outline of the sleigh and Santa up at the top. These will be stuck on with foam squares for some dimension, but before I do that, I'm going to glue all the three bits together so that I know they're the right size. Even before that though, on the candy cane shape over on the left, at the moment it's got cutouts in it, and if we were to just stick that on there, it's going to show blue through the candy cane, which is not the right colour. So look for this white piece, turn the red bit over, and then add some glue around the edge of that candy cane, along the bottom bit like that. And then we'll glue the white candy cane piece to the back. Actually, it goes down a little bit more than that, so I can add a bit more glue. Now let's fill it in with white instead, which is much more candy cane-like. Okay, let's get my main bit here. Line that up. And then check how far it goes over on the overlap. Put some glue down the join. And connect these bits. We're going based on the outline of the sleigh so that it will be lined up with everything else. Put that down there. Remember, we're not gluing this to the actual design at the moment. All I'm doing getting the pieces together for the red. Now those are lined up, we can turn this upside down and then add some foam squares to the back. You'll need quite a few on this piece because it's so big. These foam squares have got to hold on all the weight, not only of this piece, but of all the other pieces that we're going to be putting on top. As well as adding foam squares in all the kind of sticky out bits like the head, the top of the hand, the bell on the back. You also want to make sure you've got a good amount in the middle of the piece to help hold it nice and stable. If you didn't put anything in the middle sections, then you'll probably find that the card will sort of dome downwards like that, and you won't get the same 3D appearance across the whole thing. You'll have areas where it's not flat, which we don't want because it won't look as good. So although it may seem like I'm using loads and loads and loads of foam squares, it will give a better appearance overall than if you sort of scrimped out on them and didn't use as many. I'm going to need some smaller ones though to go in the ribbon and the little hole there. If your foam squares are big, you can cut them smaller with scissors. But I've got some smaller ones that are the same height, so I'll just add those ones in there. like that. Maybe one more, just there. Now I can peel the tops off of all of these to reveal the stickiness underneath. Now I'm going to line this up as best I can. It's a big piece, so take your time, and then gently drop it down. And the reason for gently dropping it is that if I didn't have it quite lined up, like I didn't just then I can move it about, take it off, start again, because it hasn't actually stuck down yet. Okay, that is looking good. So now I can push down to get all of that nice and stuck. Next, we'll build up the details on this big gift at the front. I've got a nice silver to start with. This one is glued on. It's really sparkly. Then there's the rectangle for the top of the gift. This one is foam squared on, just like we did with the blue gifts. So we're sort of replicating that same style for this one. And then a little bit to go on top to be glued. Just realised that I forgot to do the bobble on Santa's hat, which should have gone underneath, like that, underneath the red. So I'm going to add that now. Bit of foam square on there. Is there enough room? No. Okay, I need to peel this up. Luckily it's a foam square bit, so it's not that difficult to do. Stick that back down. And now his little bobble is in there. When I do the assembly guide for this project, I'll make sure that that's done in the right order. Next up, we'll add the fluff around his arm, which will be glued on. There we go. Next up will be this white bit for the front of his jumper, his top, and this is actually quite tricky to stick on at the moment. There's not a lot to line it up against. So what I'm going to do before you get the file is modify this piece to add on more of the outline of the shape of the beard to make it easier for you to see where to line it up. I'm going to do it just based on the bit that will go on top, which is this one, and sort of line that up there. So yeah, your piece is going to look different and have some extra bits of the beard on to make it easier for you to line that up along there. So don't worry that your piece isn't going to match mine exactly. Yours will be better. Oops, knocking my glue over now. Okay. I've not got a lot to go on here. See why I'm going to change it for you, because this isn't easy. Just not quite enough context on that shape at the minute. Alright, then it'll be this one, and this will be glued on top. Then there's the black bit of his belt, which will be glued. That probably should have actually gone under the red, but it doesn't matter too much because it's going to get covered up anyway. And then the buckle to go on top. I'm just checking I've got that the right way around before I add the glue. Next, we've got the front of the sleigh, which is 2 more of these red pieces. 1 and 2. So once again, I'll glue these on the overlap and then foam square them on. Actually, that's got quite a lot of overlap. I can get away with adding some more glue. I've added my foam squares on the back of this piece. So now I can line it up and get it stuck down. Although by doing that, I've just noticed actually first I need to add in my little bouncy ball for the top of the sleigh. I've just stuck that to my jumper. Tuck that one in there. And now I'll put this on. There's always so much to remember, not only with layered designs, but especially giant ones. Lots of bits and pieces to go in. Now, mine isn't quite lining up, but it's because, remember when I was sticking this together on some of those lower down levels, I didn't quite have it lined up. So now that is coming back to haunt me a little, because not everything is lining up perfectly, but I don't think it'll notice once it's all done and put together. Next up, we've got the two darker red pieces for the front of the sleigh. But before we do that, kind of like the candy cane, the bell over on this left has a white piece to be stuck behind. Add some glue on the back. Be careful around the little opening. And then glue, glue this to the back. There. That will go over the top. And my stars aren't lining up here. Again, because I didn't line everything else up well at the start. So what I'm going to do is cheat a little bit and cut these stars off. Just cut that strip to get rid of my overlap. And then I can hopefully sort of hack it together so it looks like it's lining up. This is not exactly going as planned, but at least you'll know if you do the same thing and yours isn't quite lining up either, how to fix it. I've got a join line from the red underneath showing in my stars. If I'd have glued the red bits on underneath in the other direction, so if I'd have done the back first, then the front, then the overlap would have been in a different place and you wouldn't quite see it. But it's only very small and subtle anyway. Next up is the gold detailing for around the edge of the sleigh, and this will be glued. It's going to go like that. I think my lines are going to join up nicely this time. Be careful when adding this on that those loose bits at the bottom don't drag over and leave bits of glue where we don't want them to go. I'll try and get that top done first. Then the front. Nearly done now. I've just foam squared on these three stars. The biggest one goes here, second biggest one there, the smallest one there. And then to finish off, I glue on this piece to add that final star. Looks like a shooting star in the middle of the sleigh. All we've got left to do now is Santa's face. So we can zoom in a bit now so you can see a little bit easier. First up is this black piece. This one is glued on. Then it's the piece with the eyes and mouth cut out, which again is glued. Next up is his nose piece. This one is done with foam squares. Then glue for his rosy pink cheeks. And finally, glue for his beard. I say finally, there's still one more bit left. It's not quite finally. The final glue piece. There we go. And then the fluff for the top, this one will be done with foam squares. And that's Santa. He's really cute. I love his little face. One thing I've noticed that I've never noticed before is that I can see my glue marks behind that gold. You see when I hold it into the light, you can see where I added the glue. That's really weird. I've never noticed that before. I wonder if it's just because of the mirror card I've used. It's not on any of the other colours, just that gold. There must be something about it. It's not too obvious, but that's a little bit annoying. I don't know why it's done that. Maybe I pushed too hard with the glue bottle when I was putting it on and dented the front. I don't know. Anyway, so if you're noticing any weird little bubbles, that's what that is. But there's my Santa sleigh, all finished. He looks amazing. I'm really happy with how that's come out, and I especially like the gold and silver bits, even with the glue marks showing through. It gives that extra bit of festive cheer when it's all nice and metallic. So now that Santa's sleigh is done, I guess he needs some reindeer to pull it. Here's one of my reindeer, and I'm just going to show you how to put together one of them because all of the different reindeer designs go together in pretty much the exact same way. I roughly got all my pieces here. I have already glued on the feet to the relevant legs. If you remember when we did the design space part at the beginning, I said it was kind of hard to match all the hooves up, so I did that as I was cutting it out so that I knew which hooves go with which reindeer. And then I've also glued on the nose and the eye to the brown piece that's got the ear cut out of it and the holes in the back. Again, just I was worried I was going to lose them because they're very small. There aren't an awful lot of pieces to this design. Keep it nice and simple because I figured you're probably going to be making a few of them, so they don't want to take too long. Start with the piece of the antlers that has the ear shape on it. This makes up both of the back antlers that will go behind the main head. So what I'm going to do is turn this over, and then this will line up so that the ear shape of the antlers goes up against the deer. My glue on there, and then line it up like that. Ooh, I moved that when I turned it round. Let's line it up again. A bit of my glue smushed out, but I don't think that will notice once the other antler's in place in a moment. Next up is the front body. And this also has a couple of bits to stick behind it. We've got the tail, which will line up along the little bottom, and it covers up all the holes in the back, and also a silver ear to go around the hole. The ear and the tail section. Next, I use my foam squares to attach this reindeer to the one that goes at the bottom. I've run out of my big foam squares now, so I'll have to move on to the tiny ones. That actually works out a little bit better for the leg parts anyway, as they're thinner. Try and get some foam if you can around the hook, where we'll be threading all the reindeer together, just to help give that some stability. And then peel the tops off to reveal the stickiness underneath. And then next up is the front antler. This will be foam squared on too, but the top bit goes over the head, so we'll just glue underneath the bit that touches the head, foam squares on the rest of it, and then it will line up. You can look at your screen in Design Space to see exactly where it goes. So it will line up on that back shape. You can see mine will be going along like that, and then you'll be able to see both of those antlers. So keep the bit that will touch the head, no foam squares on that bit, but add some to the rest. You may need to cut your foam squares even smaller to fit in some of those gaps. I just run some scissors down mine to cut them in half. There we go, and then peel the tops off to make them all nice and sticky.
So I'll add a tiny bit of glue on the bit that will touch the head, and then get this lined up. This part is a little tricky because the shapes are all quite similar that we're putting it onto. There, now you can, it's a little hard to see, but you can sort of see the differentiation between the two antlers, front and back. Next up is the harness, and this will be glued on top. Then we have the coloured bits to go on the harness, which again are glued. And that's the last pieces. Once I've done these, if you haven't done the eyes and nose, then glue those on as well. And now we have it, reindeer finished, nice and simple. So what you would do now is go ahead and get all your other reindeer done. I've got 6 in total. I've already stuck the other ones together. I've got my 3 in the darker brown and 3 in the lighter brown. And then when they're all stuck together, then you can have a little think about how you want to display them. Each reindeer and the sleigh have a circular hole in to use some ribbon to thread through to connect them. This ribbon's quite thick, so I'm not sure how it'll work, but I think it'll be nice. And I like that it's kind of got a star pattern on it, which kind of ties into the patterns on the reindeer's harnesses. So what I'll do is tie a little bit to each of these holes so I can connect the reindeer together. I'm not sure entirely how I'm going to do it yet, if I'm going to tie bows or just little knots. I'll probably wait until I'm actually getting it up on my wall to decide that. But just a little bit of ribbon to go between the two of them. Either pull it tight like that to join them together, or you could leave it a little bit looser so it looks like a bit more of a harness. It's up to you. And when you're doing it, your reindeer can either go one after the other in a long line, or you could maybe have 2 rows of reindeer coming out from the sleigh and do them more in, kind of, I'm trying to show you, but there's not a lot of space. Let's see if I can zoom out a bit. Or you could do them in more of a sort of 2x2 formation, something like this, where they're slightly staggered over each other. So if you don't have the space to lay each one out in a row, then you could do them 2x2, a little bit like that, and then connect this row with one bit of ribbon to the top of the sleigh, and then this row at the back with another one, and have that on the sleigh as well. Here's how the reindeer look put up on my wall, all one after the other. I've used blue tack to stick this up on the wall, but you could also try command strips or command hooks, removable hooks, something like that. Or you could perhaps prop them up sort of underneath a shelf with a little drawing pin. If you've got a big notice board, maybe if you're making this for a school or an office, and you've got a big cork board, you could add push pins in to hold them up. There are lots of different ways to do it, but you might have to use your imagination a little bit to work out the best way for your particular situation. You can also do the reindeer in the 2x2 formation. This is what they look like when you do that. This is a great way to add a wow factor to your home or office or workspace this Christmas. I hope that you enjoyed this final video for day 20 of the Christmas Craft Countdown. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and Christmas fun. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments which project from the countdown was your favourite. I think for me it's got to be the day 1 Santa chimney advent calendar, even though it took a long time to make because it just turned out so cool, and I'm really going to enjoy opening that up to get all of my little chocolates starting tomorrow on the 1st of December. But for now, thank you so much for watching along with me for another Craft Countdown event. Bye!